In this video, I'm going to be reviewing this book by Chris Knight, The Dramatic Portrait, published by Rocky Nook in 2017. Now, I'm not sure if anybody's going to watch this review of this book by Chris Knight. As I said in my previous YouTube University video, I'm not sure that YouTube thinks anybody wants to watch these videos, so it just seems to push the book reviews out less than anything else. So if you like the book reviews, I'd really appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up on this video, and if you don't like the book reviews, give me a thumbs down, and at least I'll get some indication of whether you actually want to have any more. But anyway, onto this book by Chris Knight. Now, if you haven't heard of Chris Knight, Chris is a portrait photographer from New York. I believe he's from New York. Pentaxians out there might be interested to know that, at least in this book and some other material that I've viewed from Chris, he shoots with a Pentax medium format camera. Now, the title of the book, The Dramatic Portrait, The Art of Crafting Light and Shadow, would give you the impression that this is going to be a purely technical book about lighting the face. And to a degree, that is in there, but the book's a lot more than that, actually. It's not a particularly thick book, 223 pages, but it is very well written, in my opinion. Now, the thing that surprised me most when I got this book was that the book starts off with chapter 1 with a history of portraiture, which Chris subtitles More Fun Than It Sounds. And it is, actually. It wasn't really what I expected when I got this book. It wasn't what I wanted from this book, but it was very useful. Sort of similar to if you were doing a art history class or a class on classical portraiture. This book covers the history of portraiture, how it's evolved, how some of the lighting patterns we use in photography are drawn from artists, looking at some of the classic works and things. It's really intelligently put together. It's very formative. It's very insightful. I generally consider myself to be quite knowledgeable about this stuff, and I still found it informative and helpful. There's a good index in the front, so if you really want to read this stuff, you can shoot by it. But honestly, I think that if you do bother with this section, it will enhance your understanding of the book, and it will certainly enhance your understanding of portraiture. Then, as you might expect within the book, we move on to a section dedicated to technical lighting. There are very good explanations here for both new photographers and more experienced photographers about the technical definitions of lighting and how to set mood with lighting. Now, I thought that was really well put together, as you'd expect from a book with this title. And then we move on to specifically how to light faces beyond just general technical lighting, and what to look out for, and how to place purpose in our lighting and how to think about our lighting. There are, for those of us who are very practical, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 light setups that he talks us through, as well as explaining why. And I think that's really important. So many books and so many educational materials out there explain the how, but they don't explain the why. And Chris does a very good job in this book of explaining the why. Then he moves on to something I wasn't expecting in this book at all, colour theory. Colour theory is something that I'm really interested in at the moment, and I read this book a while ago, and I didn't realise until recently when I started doing a lot of reading about colour theory that I think Chris sparked my interest in colour theory with this book. It really is very good. Gives you a good understanding of how colour affects emotion, how it affects symbolism, how it affects mood, and a lot of it harks back to the beginning bit about the history of portraiture. And he also talks about colour schemes, how you can make things complementary, how you can make things work together, or how you can make things jarring, deliberately so. And then, of course, he moves on to something else that I wasn't really expecting. It's a very rounded book. He talks a lot about styling the shoot, which, for me, styling the shoot probably just meant organising the right background, but he goes into a lot more than that. He talks about props, he talks about makeup, he talks about getting the subject ready. And then he moves on to post-production and talks about how he processes an image, and it's really very quite insightful. Chris is an excellent photographer, a very high regard, so to see how he processes an image is particularly helpful, I think, to aspiring portrait photographers. Then he talks a lot about gear, and he's quite realistic about gear, in my opinion. Where he acknowledges that sometimes gear doesn't matter, he also acknowledges that sometimes it really does, and explains why, in his opinion, gear matters. And he talks a little bit about personal style. Now, we don't necessarily agree about personal style, but I'm going to do another video on that shortly. But it's always worth hearing somebody else's view. I can't remember exactly what I paid for this book. I think it was a gift, in fact. But I'll put it up on the screen right now. And I'll put a link to Amazon in the description below. But you might be able to buy it cheaper from Rocky Nook's website. It's worth having a look through the photography section on their website. They seem to do a lot of publications for photography, particularly with contemporary photographers. Anyway, that's my review of The Dramatic Portrait by Chris Knight. I'll also pop in the description below a link to Chris Knight's YouTube channel, which you might find useful. He doesn't publish a great deal, but there is some back catalogue stuff there that you might find helpful. See you next time.